The rain hammered against the diner's windows like desperate fists seeking entry. Sarah wiped down the same spot on the counter for the third time, her hands trembling slightly as she glanced at the clock. 11:45. 15 minutes until her shift ended. 15 minutes until she had to go home. The bell above the door chimed and she flinched, her heart leaping into her throat. But it wasn't him. Instead, a man walked in, tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell just past his collar. His eyes were an unusual shade of amber, almost glowing in the fluorescent lights of the nearly empty diner. He moved with a fluid grace that seemed almost predatory, and Sarah found herself taking an involuntary step back. He chose a booth in the corner, the one furthest from the door, and settled into it with his back against the wall. Sarah noticed he had positioned himself where he could see every entrance and exit. She'd learned to notice things like that. Survival skills, she called them. Taking a deep breath, she grabbed a menu and walked over, forcing her best customer service smile onto her face. Up close, she could see the sharp angles of his jaw, the way his eyes seemed to assess everything around him with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "Welcome to Millie's Diner. Can I get you something to drink?" Her voice only shook a little. "Coffee. Black." His voice was deep, rough around the edges, like gravel and honey mixed together. Sarah nodded and hurried back to the counter, pouring the coffee with hands that had finally steadied. When she returned to his table, she found him watching her with those strange amber eyes, not leering like some of the truckers who came through. This was different. He was studying her, reading her like a book she hadn't meant to open. "Rough night?" he asked, his tone neutral. "Just the usual late shift tiredness," she lied, setting the cup down. "Ready to order?" "The usual, huh?" He took a sip of his coffee, never breaking eye contact. "That why you've got fingerprints bruised into your wrist? The usual?" Sarah's hand flew to her left wrist, pulling down the sleeve of her uniform that had ridden up. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Right." He leaned back, and something in his posture changed, less threatening, more protective. "I'll take the burger, medium rare, very rare if your cook can manage it." She wrote down the order and escaped to the kitchen, her pulse racing. In the safety of the back room, she pulled up her sleeve and stared at the purple-blue marks that circled her wrist like a bracelet. Mark had been angry tonight before she left for work. Angrier than usual. She'd barely made it out the door. When she brought the burger out 20 minutes later, only one other customer remained in the diner, an elderly man nursing his third cup of decaf in the opposite corner. The stranger was looking at his phone, but his attention snapped to her the moment she approached. "Here you go. Can I get you anything else?" "Sit down." It wasn't quite a command, but it wasn't a request either. "I can't. I'm working." "Your boss is in the back office doing paperwork, and your other customer is half asleep. Sit, please." This time, it was definitely a request, and something in his tone made her obey. She slid into the booth across from him, her fingers twisting together in her lap. "Look, if this is about the bruises, I'm fine. Really, it's nothing." Nothing doesn't make a woman jump like a frightened rabbit every time a door opens. Nothing doesn't put that look in someone's eyes. He cut into his burger, and Sarah noticed his nails were unusually long, almost claw-like. "How long?" "I don't." "How long?" Sarah's eyes burned with tears she refused to shed. 3 years. We've been married for 3 years. The man's jaw tightened, and for just a moment, Sarah could have sworn she saw something flash in his eyes, something wild and dangerous. And it's getting worse. It wasn't a question, but she nodded anyway. He wasn't always like this. When we first met, he was charming, sweet. But after the wedding, things changed. Slowly at first. He'd get jealous if I talked to other men, even cashiers at the grocery store. Then he started controlling what I wore, where I went. And then she touched her wrist. Then it got physical. You tried to leave. Twice. The first time, he found me at my sister's place within 6 hours, convinced her I was having some kind of mental breakdown. The second time, she swallowed hard. The second time was worse. Much worse. He made it clear what would happen if I tried again. The stranger set down his burger and leaned forward, his amber eyes locked on hers with an intensity that should have been frightening, but somehow wasn't. What's your name? Sarah. Sarah Mitchell. I'm Dominic. He held out his hand and she shook it, noticing how warm his skin was, almost feverish. Sarah, I'm going to tell you something and I need you to listen carefully and not run screaming from this diner. Can you do that? She nodded, her heart hammering against her ribs. I'm not entirely human. I'm what people in old stories would call a werewolf, though that's not quite accurate. My kind prefers the term lichen, and I'm not just any lichen. I'm an alpha. Do you know what that means? Sarah stared at him, waiting for the punchline, for him to laugh and tell her he was joking, but his expression remained deadly serious. You're insane. Am I? He held up his hand, and before her eyes, his fingers lengthened, dark hair sprouting along the back of his hand as his nails extended into genuine claws. The transformation lasted only seconds before his hand returned to normal. Still think I'm crazy? Sarah's mouth opened and closed, no sound coming out. Her rational mind screamed that this was impossible, that she was dreaming or hallucinating from stress. But her instincts, those same instincts that had kept her alive through 3 years of abuse, told her he was telling the truth. Why are you telling me this? Because my kind. We're territorial, protective, especially alphas. We look after our own, and we don't tolerate predators in our territory. His eyes flashed that strange golden color again. Your husband, he's a predator. And you, whether you know it or not, just stumbled into my territory asking for help.
I didn't ask for anything. Didn't you? He tilted his head. Every time you flinched tonight, every time you checked the clock, every scared glance at the door, you've been screaming for help since the moment I walked in. Your fear has a smell, Sarah, sharp and bitter, but underneath it, there's something else. Determination. You're planning something. She looked away, unable to meet those knowing eyes. He's coming to pick me up tonight. He always does after late shifts. Says he doesn't trust me to drive home alone, but really, he just wants to make sure I'm not meeting anyone. I was thinking I could run, right when my shift ends. There's a bus station 3 blocks away. I have some money saved, hidden in my locker. It's not much, but maybe enough to get me a few states away. He'll find you, Dominic said flatly. Men like him always do. They're hunters too, in their own sick way. Then what am I supposed to do? The words came out as a harsh whisper, years of pain and frustration bubbling to the surface. Just accept it? Just let him keep... Her voice broke. Dominic was quiet for a long moment, his eyes distant as if weighing options. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and firm. There's another way. You could come with me. Tonight. Right now. What? No, I can't just... You can. My pack, we have a compound about 50 miles north of here. It's protected, warded with magic that makes it invisible to outsiders who don't know exactly where it is. Your husband would never find you there. And even if he did, he'd have to go through me and 30 other Lycans to get to you. Sarah's mind reeled. You're asking me to run away with a complete stranger. A stranger who just told me he's a werewolf. This is insane. More insane than going home to a man who'll probably put you in the hospital tonight? Because that's where this is heading, Sarah. You know it as well as I do. The escalation, it never stops. It only gets worse until... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. She knew he was right. She'd seen the look in Mark's eyes lately, the one that said he was losing control, the one that said one day he might go too far to pull back from. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. Because it's what alphas do. We protect. It's not just instinct, it's purpose. And because he hesitated, something flickering across his face. Long time ago, I was someone different, weaker. I let bad things happen to people I should have protected. I swore I'd never do that again. Sarah looked at this strange man, this creature out of mythology and nightmares, offering her a lifeline. Every rational part of her brain screamed that this was a terrible idea. But her heart, that battered thing that had somehow kept beating through 3 years of hell, whispered something different. If I go with you, what happens to Mark? Will you kill him? Dominic's expression hardened. Do you want me to? The question hung in the air between them, heavy and loaded. Sarah thought about it, really thought about it. 3 years of walking on eggshells, 3 years of making herself smaller, quieter, less. 3 years of being afraid in her own home. No, she said finally. No, Mark, I don't want to give him that much power over me, but I don't want to be afraid anymore either. Then we'll do this differently. You come with me tonight, disappear, and I'll make sure your husband understands that looking for you would be very, very bad for his health. I can be persuasive when I need to be. The bell above the door chimed. Sarah's head whipped around and her blood turned to ice. Mark stood in the doorway, his expression dark as thunder. He was earlier than usual, and from the set of his shoulders, he was already angry. Sarah? His voice was deceptively calm. Your shift ended 10 minutes ago. What are you still doing here? She stood up quickly, bumping the table. I was just finishing up. There was a late customer and you thought it was appropriate to sit down and chat with him? Mark's eyes fixed on Dominic with open hostility. Get your things. We're leaving now. Dominic stood up as well, and Sarah realized just how much bigger he was than her husband. Mark was average height, average build. Dominic was neither. He towered over the other man, and the temperature in the diner seemed to drop several degrees. The lady and I were having a conversation, Dominic said, his voice calm, but carrying an undertone that made the hair on Sarah's arms stand up. I don't give a damn what you were doing. She's my wife, and she's leaving with me. Now. Mark took a step forward, puffing out his chest in what might have been intimidating if he wasn't facing down something that could literally tear him apart. Sarah. Dominic didn't look at her. His eyes remained fixed on Mark. Do you want to leave with this man?
The diner went silent. Even the elderly customer in the corner had stopped pretending to sleep, watching the scene unfold. Sarah's boss had emerged from the back office, her phone in her hand, probably ready to call the cops. This was it. The moment everything changed. She could feel it in her bones, and the electric tension crackling through the air. She could go with Mark, apologize, smooth things over, try to survive another day, another week, another month. Or she could do something she'd never done before. She could choose herself. No, her voice came out stronger than she had expected. No, Mark, I don't want to leave with you. I don't want to go home with you. I don't want to be married to you anymore.
Mark's face went purple with rage. You ungrateful little... He lunged forward, his hand reaching for Sarah's arm, but he never made it. Dominic moved faster than should have been possible, intercepting him, one large hand clamping around Mark's wrist. Bad move, Dominic said softly. His eyes were glowing now, genuinely glowing amber in the fluorescent light. You don't touch her. Not now. Not ever again. Mark tried to pull away, but Dominic's grip was iron. Let go of me, you freak. Sarah, tell this cycle to let go. I said. Dominic's voice dropped to a growl that didn't sound entirely human. You don't touch her. Something in his tone, or maybe in his eyes, or maybe in the way the air seemed to shimmer around him, finally got through to Mark. His bravado crumbled, replaced by genuine fear. What are you? Your worst nightmare if you don't listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. Dominic released Mark's wrist, but didn't step back. Sarah is under my protection now. That means she's off limits. You will not look for her. You will not call her. You will not show up at her family's homes. You will not hire someone to find her. You will move on with your life and forget she ever existed. Do you understand? You can't just steal someone's wife. I'm not stealing anything. She's making a choice. You just don't like it. Dominic leaned in closer, and Sarah saw Mark actually stumble backward. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk out of this diner. You're going to go home, and you're going to think very hard about the choices you've made. Because if I hear that you've tried to find Sarah, if I hear that you've harassed her family, if I even catch a whisper that you're looking for her, I will find you. And when I do, you'll discover that there are worse things in this world than divorce lawyers. Mark's eyes darted between Dominic and Sarah, and she saw the moment he made his calculation. Whatever he saw in Dominic's face convinced him that this was not a fight he could win. He pointed a shaking finger at Sarah. Fine. You want to run off with this freak? Go ahead. But don't come crying to me when it all falls apart. You're nothing without me, Sarah. Nothing. Maybe, Sarah said, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. But I'd rather be nothing and free than something entrapped. Mark's face twisted with rage, but Dominic's warning glare kept him from saying anything else. He turned and stormed out of the diner, the bell chiming cheerfully at his exit, a jarring counterpoint to the tension he left behind. Sarah's legs suddenly felt weak, and she sank back into the booth. Her boss, Millie, hurried over. Honey, are you okay? Should I call the police? No police. I'm okay. Actually, Millie, I'm sorry, but I need to quit, effective immediately. Millie's eyes were kind and knowing. He hits you, doesn't he, your husband? Sarah nodded, tears finally spilling over. Yeah, he does. Then you go. You go right now and you don't look back. Millie glanced at Dominic, seeming to size him up. You taking care of her? Yes, ma'am. I give you my word. Good. Because if I find out you're just another version of that piece of trash that just left, I know people. People who won't care what you are or how big you are. Understand? Dominic actually smiled, a genuine expression that softened his harsh features. Understood. I like you, Millie. Everyone does. It's part of my charm. She turned to Sarah. You've got money in your locker. Go get it. Take whatever you need. And Sarah, you're braver than you think you are.
10 minutes later, Sarah stood in the parking lot with nothing but her purse, $300 in cash, and the clothes on her back. Dominic's truck was a massive black thing that looked like it could drive through a building. He opened the passenger door for her, and she hesitated. "Last chance to change your mind," he said. "Once we leave here, once we go to the compound, things will be different. You'll be entering a world most humans don't know exists. It's not always easy, and there are rules you'll need to follow to stay safe." Safer than staying here? Much safer, but strange. Very strange. Sarah looked back at the diner, then at the dark road that led towards the home she'd shared with Mark, a home that never really been hers, just a pretty prison with nice curtains. Then she looked at Dominic, this impossible creature offering her an impossible escape. "Strange sounds good," she said, and climbed into the truck. They drove in silence for the first 20 minutes, leaving the town behind, heading north into the dense forest that covered the mountains. Sarah watched the trees blur past, processing everything that had just happened. She'd left her husband, she'd left her job, she'd left her entire life behind to go with a werewolf to some mysterious compound. She should be terrified. Instead, she felt lighter than she had in years. "Tell me about your pack." Dominic glanced at her, then back at the road. "There are 32 of us right now. Some were born lichen, like me, others returned. It happens sometimes, usually by accident during fights or hunts. We try to avoid it, but it's not always possible." "And you're the alpha. What does that mean exactly?" "It means I'm responsible for them, their safety, their well-being, their discipline when necessary. Being an alpha isn't about being the strongest, though that helps. It's about being the one everyone can depend on, the one who makes the hard calls." "Sounds lonely." He was quiet for a moment. "It can be, but it's also fulfilling. Knowing you're keeping people safe, building something that matters. My pack is my family. Will they accept me? A human? They'll accept you because I say they will. But more than that, they'll accept you because that's who we are. We take in strays, broken things looking for somewhere to belong." He smiled slightly. "Half my pack started as strays." Sarah processed this. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Why did you come to that diner tonight? It seemed like you were looking for something." Dominic's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "I was passing through, heading home from business in the south, but I caught a scent on the wind. Fear and pain. It pulled at me, made my wolf restless. So I followed it to the diner, to you." "So this was just instinct? You help everyone you smell who's afraid?" "No, but your fear was different. It wasn't the sharp panic of immediate danger. It was old fear, worn in, the kind that burrows into your bones and never really leaves. That kind of fear, it makes my wolf crazy, demands action." They drove deeper into the forest, the road becoming narrower, less maintained. Finally, Dominic turned onto what looked like a deer path, but the truck navigated it easily. After another 10 minutes, the trees opened up into a clearing and Sarah gasped. The compound was beautiful, not the rough collection of cabins she'd expected, but a village of sorts, with a large central building surrounded by smaller homes. Everything was made of wood and stone, blending seamlessly with the forest around it. Lights glowed warmly from windows, and she could see people moving about, despite the late hour. As they pulled up to the main building, people began to emerge. Sarah saw men and women of all ages, and yes, their eyes all held that same strange amber quality. They watched the truck with curiosity, and when Dominic climbed out, they approached. "Alpha," a woman with silver-streaked hair said, her eyes moving to Sarah. "Who's this?" "Everyone, this is Sarah. She's under my protection. She'll be staying with us." Dominic opened Sarah's door and helped her down. "Sarah, this is Helena, my second in command." Helena studied Sarah with sharp eyes, then smiled. "Welcome. You look exhausted. Let's get you settled." The next hour passed in a blur. Helena showed her to a small but comfortable room in the main building, brought her clothes that would fit better than her diner uniform, and explained the basics of compound life. There were rules, yes, but mostly common sense things about not wandering into the forest alone at night and respecting pack hierarchy. Later, after she'd showered and changed, there was a soft knock on her door. Dominic stood there, looking somehow less intimidating than he had in the diner. "How are you holding up?" "Honestly, I'm not sure. It all feels surreal, like I'm going to wake up tomorrow in my bed at home and discover this was all a stress dream." "It's real. You're safe here. But Sarah, I need you to understand something. Your husband, he might not accept this. He might try to find you. And if he does, if he somehow makes it this far, I'll deal with it. But you need to be mentally prepared for that possibility." Sarah nodded slowly. "I know. And thank you for everything. I don't understand why you're doing this, but thank you." Dominic stepped into the room, his expression serious. "You asked me earlier why I helped you. The truth is, beyond the instinct, beyond the alpha drive to protect, there's something else. When I looked at you tonight, I saw someone fighting, still standing despite everything trying to knock you down. That takes strength, real strength, the kind my pack needs, the kind I respect. I don't feel very strong. The strongest people never do. They just keep going anyway." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we'll figure out the next steps. Maybe contact a lawyer. Start divorce proceedings from a safe distance. Whatever you need." After he left, Sarah lay in the comfortable bed staring at the ceiling. Outside, she could hear the sounds of the pack talking and laughing, the sound of family, of home. For the first time in 3 years, she fell asleep without fear. The weeks that followed were an education. Sarah learned about lichen culture, their history, their traditions. She watched in amazement as pack members shifted forms, their human bodies flowing into massive wolves that were more bear-sized than dog-size. She learned that they aged slower than humans, that they healed from injuries in days that would take humans months. She also learned about Dominic, learned that his rough exterior hid a deeply caring nature, that he remembered every pack member's birthday, that he personally trained the younger lichens in control and discipline, that he carried the weight of his responsibilities with the quiet grace that made everyone around him want to be better. And she learned something else, something she hadn't expected. She was falling for him. It started small, the way her heart would skip when he smiled at her, the way she found excuses to be around him, the way his presence made her feel safe in a way she'd never experienced before. But she pushed those feelings down. She was fresh out of an abusive marriage. She had no business developing feelings for anyone, let alone the alpha werewolf who'd rescued her. Besides, he'd never indicated he saw her as anything other than someone under his protection. Then came the night everything changed again. Sarah was in the compound's library, reading a book on lichen lore when the alarm sounded. It was a deep, resonating bell that made her heart jump. Helena burst through the door. "Sarah, you need to come with me now." "What's happening?" "Your husband. He found the compound, and he's not alone." They hurried to the main hall where Dominic stood surrounded by his pack, all in various states of readiness for a fight. Through the window, Sarah could see lights in the forest. Lots of lights. "How did he find us?" she asked. "Hired a tracker," Dominic said, his voice tight. "A good one, apparently. Probably cost him everything he had. But he found us. And he brought friends. Looks like about 20 men, armed with rifles." I felt sick. "This is my fault. I brought this here." "No," Dominic's eyes flashed. "He brought this here. But he's about to learn a very important lesson about why you don't threaten an alpha's pack." As the lights grew closer, Sarah could hear voices. Mark's voice shouting, "Sarah! Sarah, I know you're in there. These freaks have brainwashed you, but I'm here now. I'm going to bring you home."
Dominic turned to his pack. No one shifts unless I give the command. We handle this peacefully if possible. But if they fire on us, if they threaten anyone, you have my permission to defend yourselves. He walked to the door and stepped outside, Sarah and Helena following despite his gesture for them to stay back. The lights resolved into men carrying flashlights and rifles, Mark at their head. He looked terrible, unshaven and wild-eyed. "Where is she?" he demanded. "Where's my wife?" "She's not your wife anymore. Divorce papers were filed a week ago. You've been served." "I don't care about some papers. She belongs with me." "She belongs to herself, and she chose to leave you." Dominic crossed his arms. "You need to turn around and leave, all of you, while you still can." One of the men with Mark, a burly guy with a hunting vest, spat on the ground. "Awful big talk for someone outnumbered. We heard stories about this place, about what you people are, monsters." "The only monster here is the man who beats his wife," Helena said coldly. Mark's face contorted with rage. "Shut up! You don't know anything about us, about our marriage." "I know enough," Sarah said, stepping forward despite Dominic's warning. "I know you hurt me. I know you controlled me. I know I was terrified every single day, and I know I'm never going back to that. You don't have a choice. She does, and she's made it. Now leave." "Make me," Mark snarled, raising his rifle. Everything happened very fast. Dominic moved faster than human eyes could track, disarming Mark before he could pull the trigger. The other men shouted, raising their weapons, but the pack was faster. They didn't shift, didn't need to. They simply moved with that same supernatural speed, disarming the hunters before shots could be fired. In seconds, it was over. The hunters stood empty-handed, surrounded by lichens whose eyes were glowing with barely suppressed power. Mark was on his knees, Dominic's hand on his shoulder, holding him down with minimal effort. "I'm going to say this one last time," Dominic said, his voice carrying across the clearing. "Sarah is under my protection. This compound is under my protection. You came here with weapons, with violence, threatening my pack. By our laws, I would be within my rights to end you, right here, right now." Mark was shaking now, finally understanding what he was facing. "Please, I just want my wife back." "She's not your wife. She never really was she? She was just something you owned, something you could control and hurt and break. But here's the thing about broken things. Sometimes they're stronger when they heal. And Sarah? She's already stronger than you ever were." He released Mark and stepped back. "You and your friends are going to leave. You're going to drive back to whatever town you came from, and you're going to disappear from Sarah's life. Because if I see you again, if I hear you've bothered her or her family, if you so much as think about her too hard, I will find you. And next time, I won't be peaceful about it. Do we understand each other?"
Mark nodded frantically, scrambling to his feet. He looked at Sarah one last time, and she saw in his eyes the moment he realized he'd lost, not just her, but whatever control he thought he had over his own life. "You'll regret this," he said, but the words were hollow. "No," Sarah said firmly, "I really won't." Mark and his hunters retreated into the forest, their flashlights bobbing away into the darkness. The pack watched until the lights disappeared completely, then slowly relaxed. Dominic turned to Sarah, his eyes still glowing faintly. "Are you all right?" She should have been scared. She'd just witnessed supernatural beings disarm 20 men in seconds. She just stood up to the man who terrorized her for years. But instead of fear, she felt something else entirely. "I'm perfect. I'm free." He smiled at her, and it was like the sun coming out from behind clouds. "Yes, you are." The pack started to disperse, heading back to their homes, leaving Sarah and Dominic alone in the clearing. The moon was full overhead, painting everything in silver light. "Thank you," Sarah said, "for everything, for saving me, for protecting me, for giving me a place to belong." "You don't have to thank me. It's what family does." "Is that what we are? Family?" Dominic was quiet for a long moment, his amber eyes searching hers. I'd like us to be more than that, if you're ready, if you want that. Sarah's heart stuttered. More? I've been around a long time, Sarah, seen a lot of people come and go. But you're different. You're strong and kind and brave. You face your fears head on. And I find myself thinking about you constantly, worrying about you, wanting to see you smile. If that's not appropriate, if you need more time, I understand, but I needed you to know. She stared at him, this impossible man who turned her world upside down in the best possible way. I thought I was imagining it, the way you looked at me sometimes. I thought it was just wishful thinking. It's not. He took a step closer. So, what do you say? Would you like to explore this, whatever this is between us? In answer, Sarah closed the distance between them and kissed him. He kissed her back gently, carefully, like she was precious and breakable. But she wasn't breakable, not anymore. She was steel wrapped in skin, forged in fire and made stronger for it. When they pulled apart, Sarah was smiling. I say yes, to all of it, to whatever comes next. Good, because I'm not letting you go. Ever. Above them, the moon shone down on the compound, on the pack, on two people who'd found each other in the darkness and chosen light. Sarah looked up at the sky, at the stars scattered across the velvet black, and felt something she thought she'd lost forever. She felt hope. And somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, the sound echoing through the mountains like a promise, like a beginning. We really hope you enjoyed this incredible journey with Sarah and Dominic. Their story reminds us that strength comes from within, and sometimes the most unexpected encounters can change our lives forever. If you love this emotional tale and want to hear more thrilling stories like this one, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Your subscription is incredibly important because it helps us continue bringing you these powerful, moving stories every week. Hit that subscribe button now and join our growing family of story lovers. Trust us, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next story.